Sure, because Bernie's in the building right now.
Hey.
What up, Bernie?
Hey.
Come on.
Great to see you.
I liked him.
Come on in, Bernie.
Yeah,
Them is crazy right there. What are those?
Bernie's close game is on
Hey,
point.
and by the way, my man, you always got to leave the StockX tag on. That's for Tyvis that was hating. You got to leave it on. They know it's for real.
That's how you know he's authentic.
Yeah, that's authentic right there.
Got it right there.
Yes, sir.
I could play hoops. I could go on shows today. I'm multitasking.
You look like you're 22 right now, bro. You look great. You look
Bernie,
great.
I feel like you're all over the place. I see all these videos you put out. You love getting around. You're having a ball.
Hey, Bull, he doesn't have a mic yet. Hold on. Let him get
Yeah.
the
He's
mic
mic'd
on.
up.
Ask questions.
He's mic'd up.
He's got his mic on. He's good.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Doing a little tractor
Thanks,
action
Austin.
this morning. Is that what
Yes, we are harvesting. I know we probably want to talk a little Guardians baseball.
No, we're all about the
talk
gardening.
everything.
All about the
Are you
gardening.
into the baseball?
A little bit. Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Oh, Bernie,
Or
hey,
do we
listen,
want to
when-
talk
this is a
Browns?
true
But
story.
Absolutely, though, harvesting today.
Yeah.
Tell the guys the story of Rajay Davis's home run. And I don't know if this is still true, but Bernie told me we were watching the game together.
Yeah.
At the stadium, and as soon as the ball went over the fence, Bernie, my son Corey, and myself were in a threesome, jumping up and down, hopping until he crossed home plate. And Bernie said after the game, even though it ended in defeat, he said, I've been played sports my whole life. I've been going to games my whole life. I don't know that I've ever had a moment that was that exhilarating, even as a player, which I was like, wow.
Yeah,
That
you
is
know what?
amazing.
When you're a player, you kind of get caught up in the moment of maybe making sure that it materialized right. When you're a fan like that night, that was a special night. And tonight we're going to get back on our winning ways.
I hope if it doesn't rain.
Shane
I
Bieber.
agree.
Yeah, you
Yes.
believe in Bieber. I know you
Yes,
do.
so I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to talk more about the Guardians with you, but we got to talk Browns.
I thought we wanted to talk harvesting.
I want to know what were you
What are
harvesting?
you harvesting?
There's crops.
Those are crops. So
Anything specific?
well, you know what? Today that was the soybeans and corn out on a farm out there. And actually today also we're as an apple farmer, and now it's my community at the core, and we're repurposing, revitalizing, reinvigorating Appalachia. So repurposing coal mines and to have planted 125,000 apple trees.
Good Lord.
On an old
Essentially trying to shift Eastern Kentucky from a coal economy to, you want it to be
farming.
like the Pacific Northwest. You want it to be the next great apple area.
Well, fossil fuel's been an amazing helper in our country over the last 150 years.
Sure.
But fossil fuel, climate change, global warming has massively had an effect. And if we don't reinvigorate, repurpose our thought process towards things like fossil fuel, this extreme weather that we've been seeing, whether it was the hurricane down South Florida, the flooding in Eastern Kentucky, unfortunately this issue is going to get worse. So besides the environmental side of it, boy, and Governor Andy Beshear in Kentucky had a statement. He said when they had the floods in Eastern Kentucky, he said so many people lost everything during those floods, and they had nothing to start with. And that was such a profound impact on me. And
Especially, I worked for 3 years in the area that was flooded. That's where Tim Couch is from, and we were on a
and
text
we
chain this morning
were talking with Tim on that. Yeah.
Tim will tell you the devastation in that area is unspeakable.
Right.
Still, months
Yes.
later.
And from the devastation of what they went through from a personal standpoint, and then on top of the economy and the ability to have and support your families just isn't there. So from a health perspective, it's really tragic. And then from an economic perspective, they're really at a loss. So to be able to come in and implement training programs and educational programs and real life jobs and programs that really reimagine and repurpose and reinvigorate not only the land, but the economic, the community, the families. I'm just super proud of that.
Not to mention, those are the same communities like some in Ohio that were taken advantage of by the drug companies.
The
OxyContin and all
opioid
that.
epidemic there is unspeakable.
Unfortunately, we have this issue here in Northeastern Ohio, and unfortunately by Saturday afternoons, a lot of times our morgues are filled up from the overdose deaths that are unfortunately
Bernie, I'm
happening with
glad
the
you said that
fentanyl.
because I know we're getting off topic and we'll get to the
Yeah.
Browns in a second, but there are 300 opioid deaths in America every single day. That's like a major jetliner every single day going
Yeah.
down and everybody on board. Can you imagine the attention that would get? One, and then one the next day, and the next day, and the next day? We'd be asking the FAA, what's going on?
And
What's
the
wrong
Sacker
with our
family, the
planes?
starter list, got a total pass.
Well,
It's horrible.
But
yeah.
the wellness perspective of
Yeah.
even myself, to be able to have sat and done interviews with you guys 5 to 10 years ago, where I was 4 years ago diagnosed with 5 years left of cognitive brain function, to not be able to articulate, enunciate, communicate multiple syllable words. Heck, we've done interviews where you really only catch half the words I'm saying. To be able to from a health perspective, be able to revitalize and reimagine myself from a health and wellness perspective is actually how I started learning about the fossil fuel and some of the toxins that releases to these people down there, on top of the economic disadvantage that they have. So being able to tie that all together, and not only up here but also down there, to be able to bring wellness programs and training programs from a lifestyle perspective, but also from an economic perspective, it's essential to what I'm doing.
Keep doing that work.
It's
I
awesome.
I follow it closely, and I know
Yeah.
I've been seeing what you're doing, and it's great. Keep it up.
It's awesome that you've been through so much personally, and you're always out there advocating for people. It's really
Well,
great
thanks.
that
You
you
know
do
what?
that.
It's exhausting and it makes us all feel bad about ourselves.
I feel so lazy.
It
when
is a
Bernie's
little,
around.
at times
Yeah.
it gets a little exhausting. And I'm not saying this to put ourselves or myself up on a pedestal, but, we've been so blessed. And I almost believe I've been kind of given these experiences or almost given this knowledge of it, not only to share with people, but it's almost a responsibility. And some of the things that I've gone through from a personal standpoint that we were talking about with the opiate issues, and with people trying to figure out healthy alternative ways to get themselves personally healthy, and from an economic standpoint, I've had to do that myself.
Right.
And being able to, sometimes years ago, it wasn't easy to share. This, what I'm saying cavalierly now today, wasn't easy to say 5 years ago. But with the, as Jay, unfortunately, you being so astutely right, with over 300 people basically a day.
It's stunning.
Dying of overdose deaths. And that's the ones we know about, because so
true.
many are that. And then sometimes it's a lot of people our age where your heart just stops.
Right.
Yeah.
Which a lot of times is, we don't want to say that's what it was, but we are absolutely.
These are what we know for sure. There's 300 deaths that are officially recorded as overdose, opioid overdose.
Yeah, and it's
stunning.
And we know we're over medicated in our country.
Yeah.
I mean, we're pharma's over medicating us, and to be able to come up with healthy alternative ways to live a holistic lifestyle and get away from that.
You're the poster child for that.
Thank you.
Because when we first started hanging out, I don't know, 7-8 years ago now, I was really, and I can say this to you now because you're in a better place, but when I first saw you physically with my own eyes, I was taken aback. You were you just didn't look healthy. And you've since told me that's because you weren't. But that's why every time I see you now, I'm just
minor
like,
detail,
this guy
Factually,
is. I mean, and you know it because I say it now every time I see you, how great you look now. I know you feel good. You're just. You are the poster child for how things can turn around if you're doing the right things.
Thank you.
If you're doing the right things.
You were able to, heal yourself and get healthy and regular and ready to go and back to your normal self. You got any suggestions how to get the Browns defense there?
Yeah, can you fix them?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm down about 100 pounds from my 7-8 years ago weight.
Yeah.
I actually think we need to transfer that weight that I lost into our defensive tackles and
Little slim,
linebackers.
little slim.
you know?
Can we do that? So
No, 'cause
we
from a-
point out all these problems every week. The defensive backfield isn't communicating. There's breakdowns. The ends aren't getting home. We never blitz. The middle of the run line is awful. Our second layer and the linebackers missing tackles. Like, of all of this, if you had to focus on one thing, because that's how you fix a burning building, like you go in for the heart of the fire. Where is the heart of the fire of this defense? What do you have to fix first?
Wow, Jay, you just mentioned 5 points, and I want to disagree with all 5
Good.
of them.
Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
Unfortunately, I don't think you are, and that's really kind of the issue right there when you have 4 or 5 points right there. But one of the things that was clear last week when the LA Chargers came into the game as the worst running team in the NFL. They had 236 yards all season, averaging 59 yards a game. And then they get 238 yards, 2 yards more in one game against us than they did.
We bring out the best in people.
And that being said, and watching the New England Patriots last week start developing their running game, and Stevenson running for 166 yards, knowing Bill Belichick, that running game and that physical stuff is going to come right at you. And we talked about this when I did the show the first day you guys started this year.
Right.
We talked about being concerned about the run defense, being light at the defensive tackles before the season, and being undersized at the linebackers. If we're winning, and teams need to throw against us with the pass rush, we could get up the field with their defensive ends. But if we're losing, or the teams that going to play ball control, our inability to really stop the run when a team wants to physically run at us has really been exposed. I was concerned, we were concerned about that before the season started. Unfortunately, it's massively played out as the season's materializing, and as we see a game coming up this week with a rookie quarterback, a Western Kentucky Hilltopper coming in, he's 17 for 21 last week, 188 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. A lot of his completions were off of play action. So Bill Belichick played a game last year at Buffalo where he did not throw the ball at all.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he wants to come back to Cleveland and do that, but I wouldn't put it past him to somehow, some way he ultimately wants to get the W, and stopping the run has been exposed. And
by the way, Bernie had a great line on his podcast that I saw a clip this morning when you were talking about, because somebody mentioned, I can't remember who mentioned Deion Jones, joining the Browns. Not Deion Jones. is it Deion Jones?
Yeah, the
linebacker.
Okay.
Jones.
No, it sounded wrong in my head. And then you were talking about Ramondre Stevenson. Somebody said that he's on the IR, and then Bernie goes, yeah, I think those 2 players that Ramondre Stevenson just ran over, they're going on the IR now because he had a good game last week. But Bernie, here's my question: Is it scheme because Joe Woods doesn't really have an aggressive style of defense? Is it the players? We knew that, as you said, that they were not great at defensive tackle, especially. But is some of it there's just got to be more effort and more anger in terms of, we've been humiliated the last few weeks. Let's go. Let's kick some ass here.
yeah, I really like the Coach Stefanski even keel professional approach, but there are times and situations where the anger, the emotion, the adrenaline, I think has to play into it. And one of the things I talked about on the podcast this week, and I was been thinking about since then, and as you kind of get ready for this week, is we play kind of the 3 safeties, the 4-2-5, the lighter linebackers and stuff, and we've been playing kind of zone cover 4 coverage where you're kind of getting your pressure with 4 guys. One of the things I really think we could create is, to that aggressiveness, to that motivation, is almost playing more blitz coverage. And you could do blitzing to stop the run and stuff. And when you have teams that are physically going at you, and you have miscommunication issues like we've been having sometimes in these zone defenses, actually by locking up man coverage, you could get more guys around the line of scrimmage. And I know I'm covering you, Bull. Bull,
Yeah.
you know you're covering me.
I'm way too
really,
fast for you, bro.
That really, well, actually, everybody's too fast for
Not
me.
me,
Okay.
not me.
But actually,
Yeah.
when you know it's man to man, and you know I've got you in lockdown, and and the other guys know they're blitzing, as opposed to look, I'm going to read and react from you from this distance, as opposed to I'm getting up in your face like this, and I know I got to get past you, and I'm closer to the line of scrimmage. That playing aggressiveness, playing at you, in some of those run blitzes, I think would absolutely be something you need to do to.
Be great to see it.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen much of it, and I think part of we were talking about the turnover differential and how at the end of every year, and you know this being a quarterback, the one stat, if you just want to look at one number and figure out what kind of year they had, the plus minus is the stat to look at. We talked about it this year. Philly is number one. They're the only undefeated team left. The Browns have a 0 turnover ratio right now. They're middle of the road. And for some reason, and I think that you force turnovers as a deep. Some of them are luck, tip balls, whatever. You know, you strip the ball.
But with pressure,
Most of it,
you create.
you
those
increase
tip
the
balls.
likelihood of getting turnovers, which increases the likelihood of you winning when you can play aggressive. That's why I just can't understand. Is it Joe doesn't think he has the guys at the back end of the defense for that? Why are we seeing absolutely no creative schemes and stunts and blitzes? It's like we're sending 4 every single time, and we're not getting home with 4.
Yeah, I think, again, I wish I could disagree with you. I wish I could criticize that. And I think it's, I think that's...
Grab your mic, Burn. It just came off your jacket.
Oh, okay.
Clip it back on there.
I think that's clear, though, that not only to us, but also to the coaches, and
You mean the opposing offenses know that they're not going to see any blitz?
No, I mean to our coaches,
our
what
coaches,
they're talking
right.
about. And as you're preparing for a game and a new game like this, and not wanting to give up what your game plan is going to be, I don't think you want to agree from a coaching or a Browns perspective with us. But I do think that, and I have no inside information in terms of talking with the coaches or talking with the front office, but I have to concur with you that that has to be pretty clear that this week, after Sunday's game, where Andrew Berry went out an hour after the game and made a trade for Deion Jones.
Right.
He wasn't the only one working on the defense that day, too.
Yeah.
So from a coaching perspective, we've seen that this has not worked, specifically the last few weeks, and teams have caught on to that. We know Bill Belichick, if we just line up in that 4-down lineman, cover 4, soft zone look, he's going to smash it right at us.
Yeah,
so we know that. He's going, I believe this week, there's no question, we're going to come up with a creative front or two and a blitz package or two that creates guys around the line of scrimmage and puts our secondary on notice, almost like in the old days, what Hanford Dixon and Frank Minifield, where, okay, guys, you got these 2. Okay, you knock them down. You 2 knock out those 2, and then the rest of us, the 9 guys remaining, are going to stop the guys in between the numbers.
McNuggets has some news to pass along.
Yeah, we got to do real quick. We got a little breaking news here. Game 2 of the ALDS tonight between the Guardians and the Yankees, as we alluded to, could be postponed. Well, now it is officially postponed. They will play Game 2 tomorrow at 1:07 in the afternoon on Friday. So that does push back Game 2 to Friday.
You know, the interesting thing about that, Bull, maybe you can help me on this because I don't know. We saw that the shadows became a huge issue.
Yeah.
Huge issue.
Yeah, I can't remember in Yankee Stadium.
I'm trying to think of the shadow pattern at Yankee Stadium. I can't.
It's not coming.
I don't remember.
I love that you're trying to think of the shadow pattern at Yankee Stadium right now.
The reason I'm thinking of that
I
is
know, it
because
matters.
It is. You were at the game Saturday.
Yeah, I was.
I mean, TV doesn't do it justice because the cameras can auto-adjust the iris, and it makes everything look bright.
Yeah.
But when you're at field level and you're trying to see that baseball, it comes out of the hand stark white.
For some reason,
And by the time it crosses
He had
the
amazing
edge of
seats for the
pitcher's
last
mound,
game. We've had to hear about it for 3 days.
it's dark.
I
You can't
remember
see
He didn't invite you?
Now, can you believe it?
I
Some
think
of
the
the
Blue
booties.
Jays have it. If they open a dome, I think the Texas Rangers have it a little bit, and I think the Astros
Most
have
stadiums, do because the way they're situated so that the sun isn't in the player's eyes.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of them are situated so that's never a problem.
Right.
And so you do get a shadow pattern at just about all the ballparks. I just can't remember at Yankee Stadium.
I hope the
how
shadow
it
pattern
creeps in.
helps us and hurts them. Let's be positive about this.
You know what?
Well,
They're the ones who hit, not us.
Here's my theory on that. I think it helps the Yankees immensely, and here's why. As the day gets older and the shadows get worse, that's when you tend to get into your bullpens. Well, our bullpen already has the advantage. I think the reason the Rays bullpen looked as good as ours did is because our hitters were hitting with bags over their heads. They couldn't see the baseball. So it's also going to make anybody pitching in the 3:30, 4:30, 5:30 hour, it's going to make the pitchers that much more unhittable. So I think it is an advantage for their bullpen.
It could depend on the day, too. If it's a cloudy day, it might not matter.
If it's cloudy, it won't matter.
You know, I don't know what the forecast is, but
And
it's unfortunate. I was looking forward to
Why
watching
wouldn't
the
they
game
just
tonight.
play those simultaneously? They just want to make sure everyone can see every playoff game.
Yeah, right.
That's why
They're trying to
they can't?
maximize their ratings potential.
Well,
I know people are going to get all upset now. What are they supposed to do? They're not. They don't
I'm
want
not
to put
mad.
games
No
at the
one's
same
mad yet,
time.
Bull.
No, you know what?
The fans always complain when there's a day game.
Well, Jensen Lewis actually
Don't get
had
pre-mad at everyone.
Jensen Lewis had a theory that he thinks it's good for, or I don't know if he said good, but everybody's saying, oh, it's tragedy if Game 2 is rained out because that means Bieber wouldn't be able to come back on short rest for Game 5. But this is what Jensen Lewis tweeted this morning. Was that this morning?
Yeah, this morning.
He says, not going to lie, hoping Game 2 of Cleveland, New York gets postponed tomorrow afternoon. So he must have put this out yesterday.
No,
Why,
two,
you asked?
Two tomorrow afternoon.
Oh,
So
two
it was
tomorrow
this
afternoon.
morning,
Okay.
yes.
Strength of Cleveland bullpen far outweighs the New York bullpen and will put Aaron Boone in a precarious spot of deciding how much and how often to use his high level.
I think in the end, who knows? You never know.
Well, and you know how it is in playoff baseball. You try to make something out of it. You analyze everything that's going on.
Yeah, and unlike in the regular season, in the playoffs, you manage your pitching staff to win that game. You really do.
Yeah.
And so,
But you also in the playoffs, you are, unless it's a deciding game, you are managing with tomorrow in mind with your bullpen.
right, but you're
are.
not. But you can't. I mean, you have to win the game you're playing because you might not get to tomorrow, or tomorrow may not be as meaningful. You might not have a situation to use that pitcher.
Right.
So you're not going to hold that pitcher out.
Bernie, this is the part of the show where the dads talk baseball, and we watch it like a tennis game. And
Did you grow up a big baseball fan, Bernie?
I'm gonna need my chiropractor. After
I know.
Yeah.
Did you play baseball?
Oh,
I
I
can't
love
remember.
baseball. Yeah.
You played?
Oh, yeah. I
And
played baseball.
Bernie-
I actually think I was better at baseball when I was younger than football.
Really?
Yeah.
So how come you didn't stick with it?
You know, when I got the zest for football, and
that was
the excitement of being out there on Friday nights in high school, that was just so special to me, and being the quarterback.
Speaking of the time of day,
I get it.
Speaking of the time of day, did you have a preference on when you played, as far as 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and sometimes maybe a Monday night game? Which one was which one did you like the most? And which
This
one
sounds
got you?
cocky. That's a beautiful question. Okay, I love the night games. I love the playoff games. I love the games when I was the only quarterback playing, because I knew everybody else was watching, no matter what they said, and I always wanted to be good when that happened. So Monday night games are very special to me. I know, as I'm showing my age now, because there's primetime games about every day now.
Thursday, Sunday, Monday.
But in the old days,
there's an NFL game.
wasn't.
Jaguars are playing right now.
You were the only
London.
guy in town, so that was special to me. And and to Bull, to your point, I created an enthusiasm and excitement within me that, I would try on the exterior. I would pretend like I'm cool and calm, but in the inside, I was rolling. So to be able to come out in those games when you were the only one playing, that was something.
I remember
and it sounds cocky, but
No,
I
that's
had
the
a very
good one.
good record on those prime.
I remember the Monday night game, because Monday Night Football, you got to think about it.
It was way more an event.
It was
then.
huge. Like, and the Browns weren't on Monday night as much as you wanted them to be. And I remember the game against you guys played the 49ers. And I remember y'all playing at home. And I remember my dad, at that time, my mom and dad is like, bedtime's 9 o'clock. Back then, your Monday Night Football come on, man.
I hadn't thrown my bombs yet. You got to stay up a little later.
My dad, shout out to my dad. I love him to death, because he listened to my mom about everything. Whatever she says goes. But when it came to sports, I knew I was in there. He's like, the boy gets to say, I was sleepy as hell.
So that game you're talking about, the 49ers Monday night game, was actually 1993. Last time the Cleveland Browns started out 2-0. I was the QB. Bill Belichick was the head coach then.
Wow.
He
I
was the
remember that.
QB for that. And
Who started? Was it Steve Young starting for the?
Steve Young, myself against Steve Young, and I hit Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
By the way,
Thriller with a
wait a
couple
second.
of fades.
AKA
Michael Dyson, right? I remember he caught two.
But here's the question, Bernie. How were you able to call the plays with Leroy Horde on the team because he never stops talking?
I do love Leroy, I know.
It's hard to get him.
I tell you, Leroy, that's the only time Leroy didn't talk was in the huddle.
Was on the
okay?
field.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you just shut up at that point.
But you know what, that was,
Yeah.
that go back for those memories to have been to that game on Monday night in 1993. And actually, again, last time we were 2-0, and I got to play the 49ers twice that year because we beat them that night on Monday night. I got released, and we were in first place a couple weeks later and got to play the 49ers in the NFC Championship game to get this.
Yeah.
I remember that. I was just at the time. I was just like, hold on. Like, I'm 40 now. So that time, it's in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I'm like, what you mean he got released? Like, just.
Oh, yeah.
I had to ask my dad.
You weren't the only one.
I was confused. I was
Yeah.
like, what is a release? I had never heard release before.
One of my favorite Bernie stories is your last play with the Browns, and I know you said it because every time I'm with them, I ask him to tell it again. But it's so good, you got to share it with our audience.
Yeah, well, we were talking about the 49ers game. A couple weeks later, we're playing the Broncos again, and it's like week 7. We're in first place, and they had real aggressive safeties, Dennis Smith and Steve Atwater. And they really hit, and they came, and they played tight to the line of scrimmage. And during the course of the game, again, and I believe the quarterback were a result-oriented position, so you need to make plays when they show themselves. And teams come up, like I believe we're going to come up with some defensive packages this week from the blitz perspective to stop the run from our defense against the Patriots offense. I know that other teams are going to do that to me. So there'll be stuff every week that you hadn't seen on film. So seeing these guys during the game, it came up to me, but they kept squeezing Michael, Dyson, Jackson, Thriller, coming across the middle on a square inch at like 14 to 16 yards. And to me, that's the ultimate sign of disrespect when defensive backs don't respect my ability to throw the ball deep over their head. So when they're squatting, and back in the old days, you could kill a defenseless receiver. Yeah. So it wasn't.
You could, and there would be no penalty.
You could kill the guy.
Yeah.
Carry him off on a stretcher, no flag.
And I prided myself. I never threw a football above your chest over the middle of the field. But today, you want to throw the ball above your chest because you're not allowed to hit the guy.
Yeah.
And you get an automatic interference, roughing the hitting a defenseless receiver call. So seeing that, and knowing those guys are doing that, and then knowing that I had changed plays the previous couple weeks and that I was probably in hot water if it failed, I didn't. And communication is such an issue, whether it's in football or in life. It's amazing how you could just tell somebody something. You could look each other in the eye, you could say yes, and then you flat out forget it. Okay? So to make sure that you didn't forget, I looked Michael Jackson in the eye and said, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a square and takeoff. But just in case you got concussion issues like me, or you can't remember, and back then and now the grass and everything, it's beautiful. It's real grass and stuff, but that's a landfill down at Old Cleveland Stadium.
Was the dirt infield still there?
It was. The dirt infield was there.
Third base was still out there.
And they had, but the whole, by that part of the season, it was almost all mud and stuff. Yeah. So they spray painted it green. So you had all this pretty dirt down there. So just to make sure he understood it, I said, now, let's be clear. We're going to go down just like a animal. 16.
This is crazy.
Drawing the play in
This
dirt,
is
guys.
crazy.
Do it to make sure.
Are you serious?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then going to the line, and you go to the line, hey, I got my ass in real trouble right now, guys, so you need to block a little longer here, okay, because this is a square and takeoff. Everybody else stay in. Okay, Leroy, stay in. Okay, don't go out. We need extra block. and to have it work like that. So it works. He gets a touchdown. I'm kind of happy walking off the field. And I kind of thought Bill was joking with me.
Right,
you know,
right.
He wasn't as festive as I was.
So he was still upset that even though it worked, he was like, no, that's
He'd
not.
rather fail with his call than succeed with Bernie.
That's crazy, right? We still see this to this day. Some of that stuff going on.
His way or the highway, right?
Well,
So what happened after, the fallout from that was obviously it brought into the Cleveland sports lexicon the term diminishing skills.
Well, I didn't think that was going to make it my last pass as a Cleveland Brown, a touchdown like that. But yeah, that set a domino up, and literally within 36 hours, I was released. Within about.
When did you know that it was going to happen? When it actually happened, or did you sense before that it was coming down?
Actually, I was coming to practice on Monday afternoon, and Mary Kay Cabot called.
Oh, wow.
And said that
Breaking stories even back then.
You were whacked. Yeah, because back then.
At least you got to hear it from a friend.
Wait,
Yeah.
the team didn't even tell you found out from Mary Kay?
Yeah, Mary Kay called my office. Yeah.
That's crazy that the team didn't tell you.
One might almost call that classless.
Wow.
Can't imagine that.
Yeah, that was.
But you got that
Look
thing.
at that. Look
we
at
got-
that
yeah.
ring.
Hey,
Just a reminder. Just a reminder.
Just a reminder. My gosh, man. I wear that everywhere.
You know what was cool too was got to play Frisco twice that year and get the AFC Championship monkey off my back by winning the NFC Championship game.
Yep.
And Eddie DeBartolo from Youngstown, Ohio, was the owner of the 49ers then. And back then, there was a no fraternization rule. The opposing owners don't even ever they never talk to the other players and stuff.
Right.
And to have, and it's probably one of the best compliments I think I had after a game was after the Browns Monday night game that your dad let you stay up a little late for.
Remember that forever.
It was cool. I mean, that game finished at like 1 o'clock, 1:15 in the morning, and back then we're pretty good winners, but we were not good losers. So to have Mr. DeBartolo come by the Browns locker room and come in and congratulate me for playing that game. And then to get released and have that happen, and then to be playing in Dallas for the NFC Championship game, and to beat him again, and to have my last pass as a Cowboy go for a touchdown too, to have him come to the locker room after that game was super cool.
So we don't have a Super Bowl, so we don't know what that feels like, but we want to feel like we have a part in one. So tell us that you playing San Francisco as a member of the Browns helped you beat them as a member of the Cowboys and ultimately get to a Super Bowl, so that we kind of feel like we have something to do with it.
It absolutely